Graham. How are you?
Good. How are you, Cheryl?
I'm doing great. Well, welcome to our show, Cheryl, Conversations with Cheryl Weston and Speak the Truth segment. And I want to welcome everyone to the show. And my special guests today are Dave Corbin and Graham Jordison, and I want to make this disclosure because I want everyone to know all three of us, belong or are working with the ad hoc committee for North Omaha Coal Plant, OPPD's North Omaha Coal Plant. And we have been having conversations with OPPD regarding that. And there's been some information in the news media, television, and the paper. So it's all been good. So it's out there. And we are all members of that committee as well as the Sierra Club. But this conversation is just that, a conversation among three individuals. We're not saying we're supporting, the ad hoc committee is not supporting anything here. This is just total conversation. And one of the reasons why I wanted this is because we've been having these conversations with OPPD and it's been in the news media and everything. And Dave has brought up several times, as well as Grim, about the IRA. And I am a person, I just hate when acronyms get said all the time and nobody knows what you're talking about. And people say, well, what is the IRA? I don't have any money in the IRA or anything. And so I'm like, you know what? We need to have a conversation so that the community and people understand what we're talking about. We know OPPD does, and we know other members of the committee. And there's probably some of them that don't know, but they don't want to admit. So that's the reason why I asked these two gentlemen if they would come on and we could talk and make some explain to people what it is and why it's important that we do try to talk to OPPD about this as well. And there's going to be several upcoming meetings. And so I would like for people to go to those meetings, and some of these questions may be brought up and have an understanding what they're talking about. So with that, I'm going to ask if you gentlemen would give a quick brief bio. And I said, quick, Dave, you're in that category along with Preston, who takes a long time.
No way.
No, we're going to let you're the senior. So we're going to let you, Dave, give just a quick bio about who Dave Corbin is. And then we'll let Graham go.
I am David Corbin, I am the Energy Committee Chair and the Legislative Committee Chair of the Nebraska Chapter Sierra Club.
Wow, that's the quickest I've ever heard him to say that.
Dave, you're going to make me, sound winded.
That's all right. You got extra time because he was so fast.
Yeah. Well, I want to start by saying thank you for having me on here. It was probably around 10 years ago that you invited me to be on your previous show.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty neat. And
we're having our reunion.
Yeah, right. So with that being said, I was a transplant from Iowa. I've been working for the Sierra Club's Beyond Coal campaign for 13 years now, and I originally moved to Nebraska to work to shut down the North Omaha coal plant. And so that was my first campaign that I worked on in the state. Since then, I've worked several different public power districts, trying to retire several different coal plants. And so this issue that we've all come back to is near and dear to me. And I look forward to having this conversation with you all. So thanks, Cheryl.
Again, you might, you brought it up because I remember, like I said, you were working on it before, and all the work that you did, actually, you had gotten a promise that the OPPD was going to close down the plant. They gave their word, and this year, or last year actually, and that didn't happen, as we all know. So it was really, I'm assuming this is really difficult for you to be going through this again when you, after all the work, because you put in a lot of work during that campaign to try to get that to come about. And I'm sure you walked away feeling like, hey, you guys had won and you were successful. So I assume this is pretty hard on you to have to be going through this same thing over and over, because what's happened is in those years since 2014, I think it was, is look at how much more this has done to the community, the existence. And now we're talking about another 3 years, 4 years, maybe. So,
yeah, I think and David can speak to this. David has been involved in this before I even moved here to work on this issue, and he was heavily involved in our work to get this initial retirement. And I think at least what I've learned is, once we got that, the decision or the vote was made in 2014 to retire the plant in 2023, the Beyond Coal campaign kind of, in some sense, stepped away from the community that we had created. We celebrated a victory, and so it was a learning. It's a lesson for me in that we probably shouldn't have walked away like. Well, I'm speaking for the Beyond Coal campaign. David's been engaged and involved along the way, but I stepped away to go work in Nebraska Public Power District issues and LES issues and other things, and so. But I guess what's been really hopeful is that when they made this decision to keep the coal plant open last year, a bunch of folks, including ourselves from the community, came back and got involved. And
yes,
that's been really powerful too, to see this ad hoc committee come together and all of us who are still engaged and involved and care. So.
And I'm just going to throw one more thing out, and then I want to ask Dave if you could explain when you keep referring to the IRA, could you explain what that is? But I think, as you said, Graham, to me, it's been kind of exciting in a sense. I don't know if you could say, well, why would you want to get excited about it? But I'm saying excited to see the people that has come together. We started with about 7, maybe 8 people in a group meeting, and now we're probably up to 50 in that committee, but it also has organizations and companies. So it's even more than that people are really coming out to see about this. And I think this has maybe helped OPPD to see the light as well. And like I say, we're not here to say one way or another against OPPD. That's not the point. I want to educate people on what can be done so that when you have these meetings, the meetings that OPPD is hosting over these next few weeks, maybe the community will have a better idea of what questions to ask, or to get a better understanding of things that OPPD can do, or what they can do to help their community, as well as help their homes and their children. So, hey, Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you for a few minutes. If you could kind of go, I have some questions to ask, but if you could kind of give a brief synopsis of why you are pushing for the Inflation Reduction Act, or the IRA, and what it can do.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I just want to add one thing about what Graham was saying. When we got together, that group, and they promised to close down the last 2, they already had made the conversion of the 1, 2, and 3 to natural gas. The reason we didn't keep organizing in the community is because we thought we had won. And of course, there were many other issues that people wanted to move on to, and they thought, well, this is the time to do it. So unfortunately, we had to start all over again, because a lot of those same people that were involved then have either moved, or there's different leadership. And so that's one reason why we had to start this ad hoc again. But to the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, it's a huge act with billions of dollars in it. And it's still, some of it is being formulated, and it goes over at least 5 years. And it looks like Nebraska is scheduled to get about $91 million. but the state has to accept that money, and it has to go through, some of it has to go through the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy.
Mhm.
And as some of the people that are on this might know, our state has had a history of sometimes refusing federal dollars that could be helping people in Nebraska. And so LB 560 is out there
Correct.
for Senator Blood to try to make sure if they pass that we will accept those dollars. But it's very comprehensive, but a lot of it is aimed at just the very issues we're talking about today. So it's talking about communities that have been exposed, have a history of long being exposed to pollution, who would be first on the list, or at least a higher priority on the list, to receive funds for energy efficiency, for solar arrays, for cooling centers. There's even things in there for planting trees and having canopies. So it's very comprehensive, and nobody that I know pretends to know every bit about it, but it does have extremely high potential for being able to make what I've said before, a bad situation, better.
Graham, would you want to add anything to that?
I'm not as privy to the issues David is, honestly. I mean, there's a lot in the Inflation Reduction Act. I know that there are lots of opportunities to help expand and help fund renewable energy. We have teams of people in the Sierra Club that have been looking into that. I know that OPPD is doing the same thing, but I think if used correctly, it's certainly a tool that will help us shut down coal plants like North Omaha and invest in renewable energy. So,
yeah, I looked at. Go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say, and it's not only that. There's another one if you want to get hung up with the acronyms, the IIJA, which stands for the Infrastructure. Let me get this: Investment and Jobs Act. And that also has money related to what I just said, but that money does not have to go through a state agency. That can be applied for by cities, by different community organizations. And then there are grants from the Environmental Protection Agency that communities that have been subjected to pollution can apply for. So IRA, IIJA, EPA, how's that?
Well, and I actually got a couple of emails from some individuals I know at EPA that are working, or I had worked with them on the lead situation, and they were sending me, and they heard about what we were doing on the committee and sent me out a couple of things. And you are so right. It's that there's some programs, and I think what we want to work towards in, like I say, these upcoming meetings, we want to alert individuals that are attending or hear about it to go out and tell others that these things are out there. And also maybe we can get where we get education on what's happening when you don't have air monitors, when you have children who have asthma and those types of problems. And I looked it up on some of this on the IRA. There was families could get clean energy and electric vehicle tax credits. And I think that there needs to be more information circulated, and perhaps has something we needed to push with OPPD. Are they going to push something? Because they have to do certain things in order for these families to get the rebates in order for the costs. And said there was 14,000 in direct consumer rebates for families to buy heat pumps or other energy efficient home appliances, saving families at least $350 per year. There's 7.5 million set aside for solar roofs with the 30% tax credit. And they're again saving maybe $9,000 over the life of the system, or $300 a month. Up to $7,500 in tax credits for new electrical vehicles, and $4,000 for used electrical vehicles. And we need to know that, hey, this is coming, this is here, And also I wanted to, as David mentioned, the LB 560. And we do have a Sierra Club member who is working on, I guess, writing on that. But also that bill is coming up. I talked to Senator Blood's office earlier, and the hearing is coming up. Let me make sure I got my notes. March 6th at 1:30. So, we need to maybe get out as much as we can to go down and support that. But what can we as individuals, community working on this ad hoc committee, what do you think we can do? What can I do to help people to understand? What can I get out to say? And again, I want to make sure that it doesn't go back to OPPD that I said they were this or that. The point that I want to do, what can I do to help my community be able to be aware of this, that we're working on this? What can we do? What is your suggestions? Because you guys have been at it, were at it, and are at it longer than I have. Unfortunately, my community has lived under it.
Yes. Well, the one reason for the ad hoc committee exists too is because there's things that OPPD can be doing to help people to access these funds. For years, we've been asking OPPD to have what's called on-bill financing. So if you wanted to get energy efficiency or solar, it's very expensive right up front, but it saves you money over a long time. But if you spread that out, then you're saving money, and then you're paying it off over a long period of time. There's a lot of utilities that do this. So that's one thing that they could do. It's not just OPPD either. It's talking about the city. If you think of some of the ARPA funds, another acronym, some of those COVID dollars, that there were people that were scamming the system and they were making money themselves. That's exactly what we don't want to happen here.
Correct.
We want people to help the people who the monies are targeted to be able to access the money. And that's what entities can do. Of course, it can be churches. It can be the good thing about the IRA is that it allows money for nonprofits when that's never been able to happen before. So that means churches and schools have access to this too. So it could be OPPD, Omaha Public Schools. It could be, various churches that might want to have solar and save energy. And then all the energy efficiency that is achieved, or the clean energy, means that OPPD doesn't have to expand and create more plants to create energy, because now it's being used by energy efficiency or clean energy.
David, one thing when you said about churches, because I was talking to Pastor COVID Cavett, who is having a problem with their furnace and their heating and so forth. So did I understand correctly when I read this and what you've said? Can they, as the church, as a nonprofit, go after this without having to go through the utility companies?
They can. It would always, of course, be helpful because it's here in Omaha, we have but one utility company. So, and Pastor Cavett and I used to be on another board together, and I did email her, and because I saw that they were needing new furnace, so they can get energy efficient ones. An organization that Ken Winston is part of is called Interfaith Power and Light. They're trying to work with churches to help them navigate how to access the dollars from these various acts that we've been talking about. So I would certainly reach out to them, because that's what they do. They work with churches, Interfaith Power and Light.
Okay. Graham, you want to throw in something on this?
Yeah, let's not forget, as David was answering that question and you had asked how we can get involved and stay engaged. One of the most important things that Nebraska has is a publicly owned power state. So, we as citizens own our public utilities. We elect board members to serve us. And I would say that overall our board has been, or at least from where we started to where we've come, very receptive.
Yes.
These folks they're working hard, they're doing what they can.
Mhm.
It's, I mean, not often that you can call a board of director on another utility and, get them on the phone or an email, or, go to their public meeting and have the kind of discourse we've had with them. Speaking of that, their board meeting is today, this afternoon. But that has been something that has been just really great for us. And so, and we don't want to lose that either.
No.
There is some legislation in the past and other people who've tried to come and privatize our public utilities. But yeah, going online, looking up what district you live in, getting that information and reaching out to those elected officials is really important. And it's surprising sometimes how many people don't realize that about our state and how unique that is, and how lucky we are to have public power utilities. So
I think I know that the meeting the 21st is coming up, and I believe that's at Florence. Is it community center? Is it the community? Trying to think, is it Florence's neighborhood association that's hosting the meeting at Florence?
Yeah. Cheryl, I put the link where
I just
all those
saw that.
meetings are.
Great.
So people, there's several meetings coming up. I haven't changed the one yet. The one about water was supposed to happen today, right, Graham? Or yeah, but they postponed because of the snow. They postponed it a week. So I'll change that, but everything else is accurate about all those meetings. But what Graham was saying too is that ever since COVID, we pressured OPPD for years to have virtual participation in meetings, and we didn't exceed as much as well as COVID did. So. So now you can get all those meetings and you don't have to drive miles and miles to testify. You can do it just like we're talking right now.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And I saw where you did put the link, and so we'll make sure that gets out. One other thing, I don't know, did you happen to see Iowa is proposing their Department of Natural Resources? Perhaps if you could speak on that, Dave. How do you think would that work here in Omaha?
Yeah, I think Graham's worked on that haze issue more than I have, so I'll let him take that.
Could you speak on that?
There's a regional haze rule that protects national parks and national monuments across the country, and depending on the location of certain coal plants, modeling is done to determine how much haze pollution is coming from certain plants. And then the EPA usually has to come down on the state agency who oversees the utility, and they work with the utility to write a plan to reduce the haze pollution to fall in line with the Clean Air Act. And so, yeah, I've worked on regional haze issues in the past. There are some coal plants out in western Nebraska that affect national parks and are a potential haze threat. The one thing I like to remind people is so these types of scrubbers that would get would limit the haze pollution, the particulate matter, are a little different than some of the other scrubbers that are used. But anytime that a utility invests in a scrubber, it's kind of a double-edged sword. While it does remove pollution and clean up the air, it costs a lot of money. And there's history that when a utility spends that kind of money on these types of things, that it could potentially keep the coal plant open much longer than we'd liked. And so that's it's still polluting things like carbon dioxide, is contributing to climate change. And so I think it's something that potentially could benefit North Omaha. I think, well, North Omaha probably already has some scrubbers that limit sulfur dioxide and other things, but yeah, I think you really need to keep our minds on that. Like I said, it's a double-edged sword. While you're removing pollution, we're also keeping the plant much longer than we might like, which is still, mining and burning coal and contributing to other health and climate issues. So,
but one of the plants, of course, that they talked about in that article in Iowa is right across the river. So it's not like it's far from North Omaha. And I don't know whether you know this or not, but Graham canoed down the whole Missouri River and stopped at various to document all the different coal plants that are along the river.
That sounds like something he would do.
So he went by North Omaha, and he went by the one in Council Bluffs as well. And I should just point out, they were talking about sulfur dioxide in that on OPPD's webpage in 2021, which is the last one. The unit number 5 of North Omaha emitted 3,376 million tons of sulfur dioxide.
Wow.
Not million tons.
That's amazing.
Not million tons, 3,376 tons of sulfur dioxide. Right. Yes.
Tons.
And I'm
Go
sure
ahead, Graham.
I'm sure that the Sierra Club will be very involved in and that the decisions to, like I said, we're very active in the regional haze issue. We have organizers in Iowa that do what I do here, as well as activists and volunteers and things like that are targeting those coal plants too, and trying to work or working with the communities to protect their health as well. So, yeah.
I just have a few more minutes here before my next guest, but I think it's really important that people get out to the first upcoming meeting, which will be as they put out there, and we'll put it at the end of the program, the address and the date and time again. But it's important. People just don't understand, and I will go along with what Graham said. OPPD has been pretty receptive, to the committee, and I think there's some hope that if we continue, and perhaps we won't have to fight as hard as you did 2014, but I think it's really important that people understand that it is their voice that makes a difference when people come out, because the committee can do so much, yes. But when I think so far from what we've seen, when OPPD is able to see and hear from other people, the community and people who are really affected by those stories of the individual who had a son who has asthma, who played out in the park, played football, and then the next day had to end up in ER. Those are stories they want to hear, because I think it's really, again, important that we get to them, not to say that they don't understand, but more that we can from our human aspect, because we're the ones that are affected by it. And I also want to make sure that we get, and if you want more information, and I'll put that on at the end of the program, on March 6th will be the hearing in room 1507 in Lincoln. In the appropriations, that will be the public hearing, 1:30 p.m. for Senator Blood's push for this bill, LB 560. And then hopefully, I'm trying to get in contact, because it's pretty busy down there right now, but she'll be able to come on and speak for a few minutes of the importance of why this bill is 560 important for the community. And is there anything else you guys would like to add? Give you the last word.
No,
Dave?
Again, thanks for the opportunity. And I think that there's, like I've said several times to other entities, never in the history of the United States since I've been alive has there been the possibility for funding for things like we're talking about now. If we don't take advantage of it now, then we're probably never going to get an opportunity like this again.
Graham, you actually do get the last word.
That's hopeful, David. It's good to hear that somebody's been working so hard for so long for these things. So I don't have a whole lot to add. Thanks for having us on your show.
Oh, great. And I want you guys to be able to come back because there's a couple other items that just don't have enough time, but there's some other issues. And after the upcoming meeting, I would like if you guys and we could come back and discuss those meetings, what transpired, what we can do to improve. And perhaps I'll be able to get a couple of representatives from OPPD to be on with us. As I said, we're not here to bash OPPD. We're not doing that. We're not saying anything like that. We're just trying to make sure that these things come to the community. And I agree with Dave on this IRA is a very important one-time happening, and we need to take advantage of this. And I think it's important to let people know how can they take advantage. And also, one of the reasons I like to get OPPD on is to say, even if they weren't part of the IRA, if they don't take advantage of this or something, what can people do to help? If they live near the coal plant, what can they do? And I always think, what's that? A photo is worth 1,000 words, and it makes so much more impression if they're able to visibly say. People hold on to that more than just reading something that we might get in our statement. Because I think once we get the electrical bill, we're like, oh my God, I don't even want to hear anything else. Especially after last month, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to go get another job, try to pay that.
Yeah.
Again, I want to thank each of you, and I hope, as I said, I'm putting you on Front Street. As kids tell me, teenagers say Front Street. I want you to come back and discuss after the upcoming meeting, what did you take from it and what can we do going forward? So again, thank you both so very much. I appreciate it. And have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.